Hello and welcome to this episode of the Lebenspraxis Podcast. I'm your host, Josef Bartz, and recording here from Berlin, Germany. Again, outside. In the last episode, I was inside. I don't know if you could hear that, but now I'm doing my outside thing again that I have also talked about, to spend as much time as possible outside. And I actually want to talk about something very related to that and being with nature, these sort of things in this episode. I think it's maybe pretty clear now that to be connected with the natural world is something that is important for me. I like nature, and it feels almost a little bit weird for me to say it, because how could you not? Because nature is where we come from. In our world, there is a lot to discover, not just in what you can call the natural world, or to differentiate a bit, let's say there is places that are very alive, so where there's a lot of things growing and a lot of things happening. And then there are more dead places. It sounds almost a little bit too negative, but you know what I mean, like the inside of houses, the stony places where there is lots of things that don't change. If you disappear for a year and you come back, then everything is still the same. Whereas if you are in the forest and you come back some time later and you are aware of the details, it will be actually very different. But wherever you are, you will have sensory input. You have different senses, and with these senses you experience the world. And if we think about art, we differentiate the art also, not just how it's made, like the different ways of making it, but also the different ways of experiencing it. So which senses are used? So we have music, for example, that is experienced through the ears. And in differentiation to that, we have pictures. So these are experienced through the eyes. So how we experience with which senses, or with which senses predominantly, is for us a way to categorize. So there is a lot to experience. There's a lot of input actually every moment. So at the moment I'm staying in a forest. Actually, I'm not staying, I'm walking in a forest, and there is a myriad of things happening. There are noises, there are things that I can see, there are things that I can smell, there are things that I can touch, and so on. At the same time, there's also lots of sensory input from myself, to myself, which is from my joints, from my muscles, from all this tissue, but also from my organs, from my feelings. So my brain interprets things and also produces input for the brain in that sense. So it just produces things for itself, you could say. I'm not sure if this is a nice way or a good way to say it, but anyway, I think you understand what I mean. But there's a lot of things happening all the time, and obviously it's a bit too much to be aware of all of this. So I have to choose, what am I experiencing? And that might be chosen not consciously or consciously. If your senses are open, as a matter of fact, you could stay for a very long time at the same space wherever you are and experience so much. What really stuck with me is when I watched with my kids one episode of a German TV series. This is not a series, it's a program. It's a TV program called Sendung mit der Maus, the program with the mouse. This is very known in Germany, everyone knows that. And it's something that when you have kids, it's very common to sit down on Sunday evening and watch this together. So it's a show for kids and for adults. They very often show how people are doing things, like they show a factory or a craftsman or how a bridge is built and so on and so forth. And one episode I found very, 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 very good, because they showed just for a few minutes a guy that was taking 1 square meter in the city at a bridge, under a bridge. Everything was concrete in a sense, but there was a very little patch of nature there. Just some plants basically coming out of the concrete, maybe a few centimeters of grass. And he just showed how many things are going on in this little patch. And it was really eye-opening how much is happening there and how much time you can spend there, and how the little animals and the plants there are interacting with each other, the insects with each other, the insects with the plants, and so on and so forth. That's amazing, no? Like, you don't have to go far to experience. You just have to open the senses. And what I noticed is, if you follow a practice, because this podcast is also about practicing, we talk about what I call Lebenspraxis, or how the native English speakers like to say Lebenspraxis. The Lebenspraxis, so the idea of approaching life not as something where you are a static spectator somehow, but someone that can take action and is changing, and is also changing him or herself through taking action. And instead of always saying taking action, let's also now say of guiding your awareness and guiding what you're doing, guiding your attention. When I started to do parkour when I was 15 years old, one thing that I noticed for myself, and that my friends also said, and that was commonly known in this community, is how your eyes change after some time, and you will start to see all sorts of opportunities in the city, or in nature, of course, also. So you start to see, okay, there I can climb and there I can jump, and it gets more differentiated by how much your skills are also improving. So in the beginning you might see less, and later you can see more opportunities, but it changed long-lastingly how you see the world. Because now you have, you could say, maybe a filter that you can put on top when you walk through the world, and you see opportunity to move here, there, and so on and so forth. And the nice thing about that with the parkour is that regions, especially in the city, that can look very, or that can be a little bit depressing, let's say. So the concrete blocks, this architecture that reduces the human being to some sort of beehive ant hill, how do I say it, poetic life. It's a bit over-exaggerated, but you know what I mean, like this places where you live with hundreds and hundreds of people in these blocks. And I can talk about this because I grew up in such a building. And I know that for me, it's really not something I aspire to ever go back into. But these areas are often coming with opportunities to jump around, climb over walls, and vault over things. So suddenly these places where you would, if you don't live there, would have no reason to go there, suddenly for us they became paradises of moving around. So this is how your attention and your perception of things can change through certain practices. And there are lots of these practices that do that make you go in relationship with the environment in a new way. I give a few examples. Surfing. In surfing, there is a lot of observation and to learn about the water, the wave, tides and seasons and so on, and how different places in the world have different waves. And you become a observer of the waves, but not just of the waves without anything added, but there's something added. You look for certain things in the waves, and that makes your connection with the waves stronger, I feel. If you have something certain you need to look. It's similar with plants. If you look at the forest, at the trees for doing certain things with the wood from the trees, or climbing the trees is another layer, or eating plants, wild herbs, or stuff from trees. And all of these are different ways to look at the same things, but they all shift your attention and shift your perception of the trees in that example, and teach you new things about them. And then you can see, here I could climb. This tree is actually nice for building something, or here there's something to eat. And it's just, I feel, easier for us to make sense of the world if we are going, in that sense, in relation to the world. Because now it relates to my own doing in the world. It's not a necessity. I can be, of course, also just in the forest and be there, and in that sense enjoy the beauty, enjoy the sensory input without the need that I have to do something with it. But still, to put this layer on top, I feel, is actually also doing something with the not doing anything with it layer. Because the connection that I feel to the forest, at least in my own experience, was deepened a lot through gaining knowledge about these things that I just talked about. And at the moment, I'm continuing to look into filming and photography. I'm more of a filmer than a photographer, but I'm making a few photos here and there. And I'm not a mainly someone that films. I have my YouTube channel, and for this I have a camera, and I'm using this camera, and I want to improve with every video that I make now with this episodes of the Lebenspraxis, or with these encounters. There's always on the technical side I want to improve as well. And maybe it's visible also if you look at the videos that I have posted maybe 4 months ago, and now my recent video, and from there I see, okay, this I didn't do so well, and there are mistakes here, and this I want to try, and so on. And one big thing about this is the observation of, for example, light. And I noticed recently how my perception of light changed. I would say it got to the next level. How I'm more looking at lights, at shadows, more differentiating that in my perception. And recently I started to play around more with time lapses, also a little bit more with slow motion again, but slow motion I have played a tiny bit around here and there before, but time lapse I have never played around with. It's completely new for me to make time lapses, and I started to just make some time lapses of the sky, and I noticed, wow, like I'm looking at the clouds differently again, observing the clouds, and also time, my perception of time, or how I deal with time is suddenly different, or I look at it from a different angle, or perceive it a little bit different, however you want to say it, I don't know. But because the time lapse is always long, a slow motion, it also plays with time, and it increases the time of something that is very short. So highly interesting, to see movement, how it looks fast movement, how it looks slow. It can be so beautiful. And at the same time, it can be so beautiful to look at things that are moving very slow, and then to see them moving fast in the time lapse, like the clouds, or the sun going up or setting, and things like that. And it really helped me to understand this is happening in 1 hour with the sky. Just to make a time lapse of 1 hour that is then 20 seconds long or something like this, like very short. And you see, all of these things happened here in this hour, all these beautiful things with the clouds. So the camera is another thing that I experience that helps me to see the world, to perceive the world, and to become aware of things. It sharpens my senses. Same like other artistic things and artistic endeavors or tools, like someone that records nature sounds, or someone that draws whatever, if it's outside or inside, it doesn't matter. But if you draw something, then that is a lot about your perception. Or obviously also someone that is in the business of dealing with different smells. All things that open our senses. So whatever you do, if you climb, if you surf, if you draw pictures, if you play an instrument or record sound, if you are a perfume maker or a forest ranger looking for the health of the trees, it's all putting you in relationship with the world around you, and it's all bringing your senses to life. And there's another beautiful thing happening if you are in these environments where you are just something small. You are small. We are all small in this big world. And if you're outside in nature, and whatever you do, if you surf, if you climb, if you make photos, or if you harvest some apples, you're always under the sublime, das Erhabene. That's how we say it in German, das Erhabene, the sublime. This thing that is bigger than you, and where we can only do things up to a certain point. Like when we sow the wheat onto the field, we cannot make the sun come up or the clouds come with rain. This is just happening. And we cannot make waves to appear, or the tree making apples, or the light being nice for a picture. Of course, we can create artificial situations. I can create an artificial wave inside and surf on that. I can bring light to the outside. I can help the tree with whatever to grow apples. But I think there's something very, very beautiful in letting yourself drop into this sublime world where you can only do things up to a certain point and the rest is happening. And it's not up to you to choose if it's happening. If today the light is good or the waves are good or the stone has the right grip. Maybe it happens, maybe not. It's unverfügbar. So it's unavailable. And this unavailability, that it's not in the shelf and you can just pull it out. Yeah, but maybe it's there, maybe it's not. That's the magic. That's the magic in this world. And this is what makes people wait 3 weeks in the cold and the rain until they can make the picture that they're searching for of a certain animal, or plan for the whole year that they are hopefully at the right moment in time, at the right place to catch the wave. And then maybe it happens or maybe it doesn't happen. And both is good. Both is good in this sublime world. All right, guys, that's it for today. It was an episode of the Lebenspraxis Podcast with Josef Bartz. As always, it is very helpful for the creation of such material for all of you if you spread the word. So if you send this to someone that you like and that you feel the person would also like, everyone benefits from that. I benefit, the person benefits, your relationship to the person hopefully also benefits. Yeah, so feel invited to share that with someone else. All right, continue.